everyone. Thanks so much for coming to this little corner of the internet to listen to me talk for the next few minutes. I'll hopefully try and make it interesting. Before we get started, if you can, please donate to the Samaritans. The Isolated Talks team have created an amazing platform, and it would be great if we can use it to raise as much money as possible. So to kick things off, I wanted to tell you 3 things about me. 1, I've got a pretty good memory, but I won't ever remember my keys. 2, I'm a big Christmas lover, but I think The Pogues is probably one of the worst songs that's ever been written. And 3, I claim I can't start the day without a cup of tea in the morning, but I will frequently have 2 sips and then leave the rest to go cold. That's just a few of the ways that you might say that I contradict myself on the regs. But the idea of contradiction, and why I think we all need to get just a little bit more comfortable with it, is what I want to talk about today. Insert fancy talk title. So what do I mean when I say contradictions? Well, the Oxford definition says that they are a combination of statements, ideas, or features which are opposed to one another. And it's this idea of what opposition is and what exactly counts as an opposed idea or belief that I think we run into problems with. Andrew Tenzer and Ian Murray explored this a little bit in their Isolated Talk, which if you haven't watched yet, you should definitely check out. In today's world, there seems to be a growing discourse of having to come down on one side of the fence. If you identify as a conservative, there's no space for you to entertain that a liberal view on something could be the correct one. When it comes to the climate, you're either an eco-warrior and sustainable in everything you do, or you can't claim to care about global warming. And we see it in advertising too. Brand purpose, either effective or the industry's biggest lie. In modern culture, it feels like we haven't left much room for the middle. It's not applauded to say, well, I think there's some truth in both sides, or I'm not sure what I think is right just yet. I want to hear more sides of the argument. We're encouraged to form opinions, choose sides, and do it quickly. And this has only been exacerbated over the past few months. For every development or announcement during the pandemic, there has been thousands and thousands of tweets within minutes. A sea of analysis and strongly held opinion, which slowly swallows up your headspace to stop and really consider how you might think or feel about something. Instead, we often find ourselves quickly putting our stake in the ground and then feeling compelled to keep it there. This increase in polarisation of views is leading to frequent clashes within culture. Opposing sides coming to blows, both on and offline, ferociously defending the side to which they feel they've aligned themselves. It's shutting down debate, which could actually lead us to a more harmonious and a more progressive world. It's leading to an increase in extremism, in ignorance, and a lack of empathy or tolerance for people who just think differently to us. But where does this obsession come from? Why is it that we're so determined to see things in this binary way and leave no room for the grey areas? There are lots of things at play that psychologists and sociologists have explored as potential causes. But for the sake of time, I'm just going to look at 2 of them. So the first is our desire to create a consistent sense of self. We like to think of ourselves as independent, unique thinkers who hold logical and authentic views. For this reason, we're a little bit inclined to ignore information that we believe is in opposition to those views, because doing so creates something called cognitive dissonance. In other words, it just makes things a bit messy. If being a liberal is a really important part of the self that you've created, it causes a bit of unrest in the brain to then agree with something that Boris Johnson says. So we don't. Secondly, we surround ourselves with our people, our tribe. Humans have always done this, but social media has made us a bit less aware that we're doing so. So when you scroll through Twitter or you get served ads for op-eds, it's easy to forget that the content you are being served is tailored by an algorithm. It's curated so that it aligns with what you already think. People you follow, yeah, they probably think like you too. We all create our own mini echo chambers, which reinforce every day that the way that we see things is the right way. And more importantly, that our view is what everyone else is thinking too. Apart from the fact that it's not everyone else, because it's actually just more people who are like us. So what can we do? I've chatted to a few different people, and these are just 4 things that I think could help. The first is I think we need to reconsider what we deem as contradiction. If you're trying your very best to live sustainably, but one day you don't bring your keep cup and you have to get a disposable coffee cup, that doesn't make you a hypocrite. If you generally think someone's a bit of a tool, but then you find yourself agreeing with something they've said, that's allowed. The second is I think we need to normalise changing your mind. We're all being exposed to new views, new voices, and let's face it, a new world at the minute, pretty much every single day. Just because you thought something last week doesn't mean that you have to think the same today. And yes, that is still the case even if you tweeted about it. The third is listening, and I mean really listening to people who hold different views without dismissing them. You don't need to end up agreeing with them, but you might start to understand why they feel the way they do. There's actually a great Reddit thread called Change My View, where people post statements that they believe with an open invitation for people to challenge them. When someone then makes a point that has actually changed the way that they see things, they then acknowledge it with something called a delta. And that's essentially a symbol that means I've listened and I've learned something from what you've said. More of this. Lastly, I think we all need to slow down and get a bit more comfortable with sitting on the fence for a little bit. I recently came across a publication called Delayed Gratification, and their tagline is the last to breaking news. They pride themselves on in-depth independent journalism, not at the time when something's happening. Add content like that into your feeds. Resist the urge to comment and decide straight away, and give yourself time to consider all sides of an argument. So that's me. If you made it this far, thank you. And again, please do consider donating to the Samaritans. They're doing a really, really incredible job, especially at this weird time, of just being there for people who need someone to listen without judgment and without pressure. If you fancy chatting more about any of this or have any thoughts about what I've spoken about, then you can find me on all of the platforms, LinkedIn, Twitter, Instagram, and in true marketeer form, I'm going to leave you with a poignant quote in bold type as a bit of a mic drop. Thank you for watching.